Today, we are privileged to have Mr. Manish S. Sharma, Additional DGP of the Government of Madhya Pradesh. He has a diverse experience in 3 decades with the government, having served across 4 continents. His background incorporates a unique composition of service in the fields of law enforcement, counterterrorism, diplomacy, UN peacekeeping in Europe, and ensuring transportation security in India. Manish sir is also one of the very few experts in India who combine extensive international and national field level experience alongside outstanding international acclaim in combination with academic and scholarly work. He also got a special recognition of Proclamation Day in his name by the US Congress. We are so privileged to have you on board, sir. Thank you so much for taking out the time. Let me begin with my first question, sir. I would love to know your views on the current private security structure in India. Do you think there is any scope of improvement?
There are two parts to this question: the current private security structure and with respect to the scope of improvement. So when I begin, before that, let me congratulate Business World on the excellent coverage it has been giving the country in terms of the economic and business aspects for the past several years, and also compliment it on, as I understand, a new security-oriented publication is due. So a welcome addition to the entire security fraternity. With respect to the private security industry, see, it's a vast industry, and if I was to say that there's one particular view, that will not be correct, because number one, the private security industry is governed in a federal structure in India. Can I just for a moment?
Sure, sir.
Hello. हाँ, मिल गया और वो अब चालू हो गया, तो फोन जो भी हो तो फिर बाद में दीजिएगा. So as I was saying, the private security structure in India is primarily governed in the states. You see, our constitution has 3 lists: the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. The union list means those subjects on which the government of India has powers to legislate. The state list means those subjects on which the state governments have powers to legislate, and the government of India or the central government does not have that power. And the concurrent list is the list in which both the governments, those subjects on which both the governments, state or center, can legislate. So law and order, which means security, falls under the state list, and therefore primarily it is the responsibility of the states to execute everything. The private security industry in India till about 17 years ago was largely unregulated, if we can say so, because there was no act or regulation or proper rule in place. This all started with the 2005 introduction of what is now known as the PASARA, which is the Private Security Industry Regulation Act. And that has set the stage or the base for ensuring not only regulation, but also facilitation of the private security industry by the government. Now, various states have followed that. So every state, mostly all states, have their own laws passed within their own legislatures. Some have their rules, and the security agencies in that state are governed by that. So that is the basic structure under which the private security industry operates in India. Now, in the states, in the central government, the Ministry of Home Affairs is the nodal ministry which issues instructions and guidelines on how to go about the process. In the states, there is what is known as the controlling authority. And the controlling authority is basically the officer who is entrusted with the task of ensuring regulation and also issuing licenses. So licenses would mean once the act has come into place, it has become necessary for every person, shop, industrial regulation or anyone employing a security agency to hire only a security agency that is licensed by the government.
That
And
you
these
would.
licenses are given by the controlling authority. So that controlling authority in most states nowadays is the Home Secretary. In some states, still it is an IG or an additional DGP. So that's how the system works. When the controlling authorities used to be entirely police in most of the countries, so I used to be the controlling authority in Madhya Pradesh for about 2 years. So that is the structure of regulation.
Okay, great.
And scope of improvement, certainly. See, what happens is, I believe improvement, learning is a lifelong process, is an evolution. So whether it is an individual or an organization or an industry, learning and improvement scope is always there, and thus also in the private security industry. If I was to identify clearly two or three factors where the scope of improvement is there, one would be the training. The trained manpower that is made available by the security agencies needs upgradation. That is not to say that there is no skilled manpower available, but the quality of manpower certainly can improve. So that is one area. Two, I would also say, is in terms of the use of technology. So there is not really much use of technology in the private security industry as of now, largely. So there are small bits and pockets here and there, some good companies that are using, but not mostly. So that is the second. And there are so many, but one major one I would like to point out at this stage is uniformity across the country. So as you would be, or you would have spoken to a number of the top captains of the industry, others at the Security Leadership Summit, some of them are very satisfied with how the way things are going on. Some of them may not be. And the entire reason for this is the lack of uniformity across the country. Now, we being a federal state, every state has its own, typical requirements, regulations, and other things. And therefore, this uniformity is not there. So if through a central mechanism or through better coordination, if this could be achieved, that would be a huge improvement in the private industry.
And this brings me to my next question. As you mentioned, technology. That is my next question. That how crucial do you think technology has become in this era, and to have a futuristic vision amongst these security organizations? How crucial is the role of technology?
It is absolutely crucial. In fact, I believe that without the good use of technology, the industry will lose its potential that we can see, in terms of its growth, in terms of its performance. And not only the private security industry, as we see the technology, even in the government sector. So when we speak of security, it's a the government, the entire gamut of government is there: police, paramilitary forces, others. And then there is this private security industry. So the government at the moment is using much more technology as compared to the private security industry. So this needs to be there. We also need to understand that you and I and others, we live in a transformational world. We are seeing a tremendous transformation in technologies. Why I say this is, you see, if you remember, maybe you do not, but we remember the times when there was hardly any computer. So computer was not there. It came in around, in India in late 70s, early 80s. And it was a fascinating introduction to technology. And usually what happens is transformational technologies till now, till today, used to come once in 20 years. So computer came, internet was not there, remember. So for about 20 years since that computer was introduced, the internet was not there. Then the internet came, another transformational technology, which changed the world.
Right.
And then for another 20 years, no other technology similar to this came. Then the mobile phones came, the smartphones, as you know them. Who could have thought, in 1975 or even in 1990, that there would be smartphones that, a computer in your hand that could do everything. So those are transformational technologies once in 20, 25 years. We are lucky because we live in an age where three transformational technologies have come together. So this is artificial intelligence or machine learning, as you may call it, blockchain, and Internet of Things. Now, each of these alone is capable of transforming the world and, of course, the security industry. And when combined, you can imagine the scope of transformation that can take place. So it is crucial. We have identified sectors, even in the private security industry, where technology can play a huge part, not only in an extremely crucial aspect for the private security industry, which is cutting costs and enhancing their economic viability, which is not so with the government, because the government, as it is, will provide security. But for the private security industry to survive, it is necessary they do it in a rationalized economic manner. And this is where, artificial intelligence, other means can come in. So technology certainly is very, very important. And let me give you one example out of my own experience. I was in the US for some time, and something that I noticed there, and I had an occasion to meet the chief of the US Cyber Command also, who is also the chief of the NSA, an organized national security agency. And what he was doing was he was going to the various top universities of the nation in the US, and at every university he was requesting the students there, young technology students, to join the government, or to join the security industry to enhance the security of the nation. And how to use technology, he would give examples how the Cyber Command and the NSA were doing it. Now, this is the kind of proactive approach that is necessary towards technology in our country also. And perhaps it is then that the question you raise with respect to the importance of technology, those benefits will start arriving to the society.
I hope in India also we see such proactive nature amongst the youth and in the security professionals, everyone. So my next question leads me to take you to cybersecurity. As you know, this is a rising concern all over the world, not just in India, but all over the world. Is our private security industry or government equipped to deal with the ongoing cyber threats? Because according to a report, cyber criminals can penetrate 93% of the company's networks. And this is just one of the threats. How menacing is this problem?
That's a very good question to ask, because it has, I feel this question has not been asked enough in the discourse on security. And even though there is a huge talk about cybersecurity, it is largely limited to the financial frauds and to an extent the hacking of companies. That's it when we talk about cybersecurity in most platforms in India. So it's a very good issue to raise. See, what happens is that it's as I said, it's a vast area, involves a number of things, and involves state actors as well as non-state actors. When I say state actors, it means governments have cyber capabilities, whether to attack or to defend. And when I say non-state actors, it means there are private individuals with almost equal capacity to certain governments to do those things, both attack and defense. And therefore, cybersecurity becomes very, very important, not only for the country as a whole or a government, but also for private industries. Two or three examples, immediate examples come to mind, some of them a little bit old, some immediate examples. You would have read about the cyber attack on the world's largest oil facility, petroleum facility, some years back. And that was on the Saudi Arabian Aramco, which is one of the largest companies in the world producing oil. And that was an entire cyber attack which crippled their production for almost 2 days. Now imagine the billions of dollars of value lost because of that cyber attack. Similarly, closer home, we have seen last year, I think it was, when, I'm not going to name the country, but a major city in India lost its electricity grid for a few hours. It was blamed on a major country. This is just one of the, and this, later it came to light that it was a signal from that country that we have these capabilities. On the companies front, we keep getting news about Chinese companies who are infiltrating not only the US but European private companies' networks, stealing data, from their corporate data, and providing that corporate data to their own companies. So this kind of espionage is also helping them, making better profits for Chinese companies. So the cybersecurity threat is present everywhere, in every vertical, in every horizontal, and it is extremely important that we devise ways of dealing with it. And I've not spoken about the financial aspect, the frauds, the data protect, personal data theft and all, because that is generally spoken about as it is. But these are the entire gamut of threats is there. Are we doing enough? Like I said, no, there is never nothing known as enough. Substantial things are being done by the government, by in terms of protecting the government infrastructure, protecting the grids, protecting dams, protecting everything. A switch could cause a dam to flood. So several things are being done, but there is more. And what is more is the major countries in the world have what is known as a cyber command. Just as I mentioned about the US cyber command, China has one, most of the major European powers have one, which means a dedicated defense or security command that only is completely dedicated to securing the nation and its economic infrastructure. This is not so currently in our country. So while there are authorities, every state also, police also has cyber security and cyber cells in every state. There is talk of cyber police stations in every district, but there is no unified structure in the sense of a command that is looking entirely after this. So I think that is something going forward we would require. And that said, the private industry in terms of the cybersecurity is evolving. So there are lots of professionals who are taking this as their core subject, coming in, helping companies, and who specialize. But then again, they look at only one particular aspect, which is largely, the protection of one particular company's data and prevention of, those denial of service attacks, those kind of things. So I think it has to be a combination of efforts between the private and the public sectors if we are to secure this nation.
Very well put, sir. Because I think some people also consider cybersecurity or cybercrime as a potential war in the future, which can lead to potential war.
True. Very, very rightly said. There are at this moment there are about 40 countries who have the capability, the means, and the capability to wage cyber war.
I hope India takes all these steps to defend our nation and stay ahead of the game. So, my fourth question would be, what are the few effective steps you can suggest which can enable a better security system in India? As you mentioned, a better training is required, not that our training systems are bad, but we can improve our training. What are the other steps India can take to make its security system better?
Okay, so let me say, again, I would say there are several steps, and some more important than the others. So I'd like to list out 3 or 4 important ones, which I feel are very, very crucial from the holistic perspective in improving the security structure in India, whether government, private, societal, or anywhere. Let me start with something known as breaking down the silos. When I say breaking down the silos, it actually means that within the government also and outside also, all of us live in either our departments, our agencies, or our companies, which means that we are very good at doing making decisions for those specific silos, but we are not interacting enough with similar vertical silos that exist in other places. Let me give examples from the defense sector. So there are in the military, there is Army, Navy, and Air Force, each of them having very important roles. Imagine the benefits that will accrue if they shared information as much as necessary, and if they were able to integrate that and make use of that information towards the betterment of the security of the society. Similarly, in the government, multiple agencies are involved in security. There is also something known as a joint mechanism, security mechanism and intelligence mechanism, where there is sharing of information. Despite all these structures being in place, still those silos are intact. So that is one one thing. If they can be broken down, there is far greater information synergy that's going to enhance the security. That's one. Two, I would also say we need a national consensus on national security. When I say national consensus, I compare it with the rest of the world. I have been fortunate. God has been kind. I've served across the world. What I have noticed, the difference between India and the other countries is that in most other countries, whether democracies or otherwise, there is a consensus in the political leadership and the administrative leadership with respect to national security. So the moment the question of national security is there, the different parties come together in the Congress, in the parliaments, and enact laws without saying that this is for X benefit or Y benefit. Something that we still yearn for to see in India, where this kind of national consensus is yet to develop. So if somehow it was we move towards that kind of a mature, fully mature democracy or whatever system we may call it, that would be of great help in enhancing the security of the nation. I would also say that awareness in society with respect to the importance and the need of the security is important. This again is missing. Let's say most shopkeepers in India are absolutely not concerned with security. They don't even realize what is security. Why only shopkeepers? Most companies in India, only so far as it concerns them, are they aware of security. Beyond their own company boundaries, whether physical or virtual, they are generally not involved or concerned about security, at least as a part of the society, which they should be. In other countries, this is there. In fact, very recently, the UK has passed a law, and it's known as the right to protect. And it's a very interesting law, Shilpa. Given the time, you must read about it. The law actually mandates every owner of a shop to be aware of what security needs of his and his customers are, and to implement measures to achieve those security needs. That's a wonderful law to come into place, and if it is executed properly, it will certainly enhance security in British institutions and British shops, British streets, British public transport, everywhere. So that is what I'm talking about. Awareness in society leading to the passage of such a law. That would be magnificent. Even if it doesn't lead to passage of such a law, the simple fact that the society and major organs of society are aware that security is necessary, and the discomforts associated with security are also necessary, that will go a long way. And finally, let me give you one more aspect, sure, which I feel is crucial, and that is sensitivity towards security amongst all stakeholders. And media is a huge stakeholder in providing security or providing anything in the society. When I say sensitivity towards security among stakeholders, it is different from awareness. Let me tell you how, through a personal example again. Let me also say that whatever I'm saying here, the views that I express here are my personal views, and they do not reflect the views of the government. And please, when you print this, I believe this is for a print edition, or is it for a video?
Video, sir. So this is for the video that might get printed also, but I'll take your approval for the same.
All right. So, I wanted to clarify that these views are my own and they are not the government's views. So the sensitivity to stakeholders' issues, security is, the example that I wanted to give was before the Mumbai attacks. You remember the 2008 Mumbai attacks, on the hotel and everywhere, the huge impact it had on the country's psyche and the economic infrastructure. I was chief of security for all airports in India at that time. Before that, during that period. And we received, and not exactly at the time of Mumbai, but before that, I was, director security for. So we received a request from the Black Cat Commandos that they wanted to set up their operational hubs in 4 airports.
Okay.
which was a request by, and the NSG, which is the Black Cat Commandos, the National Security Guard. They are the prime counter-terrorist organization in the country.
Yes, sir.
So I justified that request. I submitted it to the chief of my organization with the comments that we need to accept this request and it will enhance the security of the nation. After some days, the file comes back to me and with the comments that please find out how much is it going to cost in terms of the economic impact to the organization. So I took into on board the land department of the organization and other similar departments and got figures from them. And their feedback was that it's going to cost X crores for X city, X crores for X city, and therefore the land should not be given. That was their view. Anyway, the file came back again to me, and I wrote down again, giving my comments that though this much is going to be the cost, what I feel and the past evidence also suggests that if there is a huge terrorist attack or any kind of attack on critical infrastructure, that economic damage is much more than the cost that we will incur at this moment. And therefore, we should give this land to the NSG to build their operational hubs. The file goes up to the chief again. And eventually that proposal was not accepted, which meant that the Black Cat Commandos had to operate only from Delhi, which was their hub.
Yes.
Not even in Delhi, it was about 60 kilometers away from Delhi. So this was the situation till the time I left that organization, until the time the Mumbai attacks happened later. Now imagine, if you remember or you may have read, that it took the NSG 60 hours to reach Mumbai from Delhi. And in those 60 hours, many more people lost their lives. Millions of rupees of economic damage was done, and incalculable amount of the psychological damage this country had suffered. Imagine that for a few crore of rupees, if that proposal had been accepted earlier, those hubs would have been in place. And if there was a hub in place at Mumbai airport, they would have reacted in perhaps half an hour or 1 hour instead of the 60 hours it took them to come from, far away from Delhi and then take a plane from Delhi and all that. So that is what, when I mean sensitivity and this stakeholder which I was working for was an organization of the government. So that sensitization has to be there towards security, that security is important for economic development as well. So I think these are the 3 or 4, points that I mentioned that will enhance security in India.
My next question would be that we usually see more of men in the security industry. We see very few women in the security field. Do you think more women leaders will be a part of the security industry in the future?
I certainly feel that more women will be part of the security industry in the future, not only in the government, but also the private security industry. And I not only feel it, I also am of the strong opinion that this is necessary for the development of the country. You see, we are speaking about 50% of the population. And currently, this 50% of the population in the forces or in the private security structure is not even 10% of the security. So this huge anomaly has to be reduced. And there are several ways we need to, accomplish this. But first, again, why you have seen very few women? That's right. There are very, very few women and even fewer women leaders. The government has started seeing some women leaders, and we are fortunate in this country that we are now seeing women DGPs also, something which was unthinkable about a couple of decades back. And many countries, including the US, have seen fewer women police chiefs than we have seen. So that is a positive sign that we see, at least in the IPS, where there are women who are making it to the very top. Yes, there are few. There need to be more. Still, we have this tendency within the services where some women opt for other services, even if they are selected for IPS. They will go in for a service which is taken later by the later ranks. The other police forces, the situation is even worse, where there are even fewer women leaders. And the private security sector also, I have seen extremely few. Therefore, the recent Security Leadership Summit, where women leaders in security were awarded for their good work, is an excellent step to bring women forward. Also, I feel, since women are performing double the task amount of man, I may be crucified for saying this, but see, what happens is men are not in generally looking after their families, but women are doing both. So if they are working also, and they're looking after their families also, which means that they are working more than men, and therefore they need to be, perhaps in some way, the work needs to be incentivized. Some incentives need to be introduced in appropriate places, which will encourage more women to join the security forces and thus rise in the leadership of the security forces. I think also another factor that may influence and that may encourage women is if we can improve the working conditions in the security forces, especially the leadership positions. Certainly, their working conditions are as good as men, but not in the other positions, whether in the government and certainly in the private sector. Much can be done to improve those working conditions. So I think all these things combined will eventually give rise to a lot of women leaders, rise to a number of women dignitaries in the security forces, and that will be of huge benefit to the country.
My next question would be, sir, what are your views on the airport security systems? Do you think it sets the international standards of a country?
To answer that question, I'll have to go back several years when I was with the civil aviation security industry and the government. And my views will largely reflect the situation at that time and subsequently, which I saw firsthand and tried to implement firsthand, and the subsequent reading and experiences I have had as a government officer, as a security officer, which may not although be directly related to that, but are based on what I have seen and what I have experienced. So I can say that the Indian aviation security setup, by and large, and again I use the word by and large, is at par with one of the best in the world. Why I say that? Several reasons, but why I say that is, you see, there is this organization of the UN which monitors aviation security in the world. It's known as the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. It has its headquarters in Montreal, Canada. And the ICAO has periodic audits, security audits. So ICAO team goes to various countries and they will conduct audit of various important airports in the world and then submit their reports, based on which the particular country has to make improvements or follow those guidelines that have been set out. And these audit reports by the ICAO are done on the basis of what is known as the Annexure 17. Annexure 17 is to the Civil Aviation Convention, and that lists out security and facilitation and other aspects of the aviation industry. So over the years, these audits that have taken place, whether it is of Delhi Airport or of any other institution, have resulted in a very fair marking for the country and its airports and its aviation security setup. So therefore, that is one prime reason why I say that we are right almost at the very top in terms of our implementation. Also, every airport in India has what is known as an airport security program, which is updated very frequently, which means that and that it's a good document that contains a number of things in the eventuality of a number of things, which means if this happens, do this, if that happens, do this. So largely what I have seen in the last few years is that the private security system and the private security industry has come up very well. And two major improvements that I would list here with respect to the private security industry is, one is that the professionalism that has come in, although it has been very gradual, but the professionalism that has come in is a remarkable turnaround, because initially It was just another job, but that no longer remains so, to the extent that I had experience once where a particular private security company told me that they are providing security services to Amazon in India, and the standards set by Amazon were so high that they had to improve their own skills, upgrade themselves to what the client wanted. And therefore that professionalism had come into the industry. Of course, it's not wide across, but it's a good beginning. Similarly, in terms of training, I feel that although yet we need a lot of improvement in the training sector, but there are institutions that have come in as centers of excellence, which means there are some institutions, training institutions in the private security industry, that can be compared with the best of training institutions in the country, in the government sector also. So that's significant advancement, in terms of upgradation of skills. So these two are good improvements that I see in the security industry.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you so much for taking out time for us. I hope you enjoyed the segment. I am enlightened by all your views, and I hope to connect with you very soon in the future. Thank you for sharing all your uh, efficient views and effective steps that we can take down for the security industry. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
My best wishes to the business world, your audience, and of course to everyone who will take away something from this interview. Dhanyavad. Jai Hind.